the record button because I always forget to do that until right before the person starts talking. But this time I remembered at the beginning. So welcome to Toolbox Tuesday. Appreciate you being here. It's our second one of February. Obviously, February's got some bonus days, or one bonus day this year. So I'm excited that we were able to fit two Toolbox Tuesdays in. And just like the last one 2 weeks ago, we're keeping it all in-house. So we're, normally we do these with outside vendors. In fact, we already have March scheduled, and those will be with outside groups again. But we just felt like we had some things that were worth covering in-house, and enough new faces joining these that it seemed like it made sense to do it. So one thing I'll remind you of, I think I mentioned this last week on Coffee with Closers, we do have the new fee discounting percentage chart is in the same folder that the pricing lists are in. If you aren't sure where either of those live, reach out to me, reach out to the Sales at Pay Compass team. They'll give you the link for that. Here in a couple of days, I'll send out a pricing update anyway with a link to that, because we always do that at the beginning of the month. And I'll send out the schedule for all the March Coffee with Closer and Toolbox Tuesdays a little bit later this week as well. And I think that is all I have to stall. It looks like we're creeping up over 30, so I'm not going to waste any more of the time. Oh, the other thing I'll say, and Justin's always great about reminding you of this too, if you have a question as we go, we'll take some pauses, and feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question, or you can always drop a question directly into the chat. I'll see those and either answer it myself or kind of send that to the guys when appropriate. And since Justin is leading this one, if you want to ask him a question via text or email, you can do that as well. Just as a reminder, these are recorded, and so they'll be a little bit different than Coffee with Closers, simply because we send this out into the internet when we're done. But if you've got anyone on your team or anyone in your area that it wasn't able to make it for whatever reason, or if you've got to drop off early, we'll record it. We'll send the link out in an hour or two as soon as we're done. And give you an opportunity to watch and listen after the fact. All right, I think that's it. Normally I do a flowery introduction, but I'm just gonna turn it over to Justin and let him go.
No flowers for me, John? Disappointed.
None whatsoever.
Well, we'll make the decision based on how well I do, and if I screw up and go down some weird tangent, whether we're gonna record and release this, we'll see. So we'll make that decision later.
That's fair.
Yeah, this is going to feel kind of like a Coffee with Closers, except very much we've got some prepared content. I'm going to be doing most of the speaking here because these are some topics that I feel are really important. And John and I were talking about when we were planning out these sessions for February, and like you said, we just realized that we have a lot of new faces here that are obviously familiar with payments, but maybe not familiar with all the different options and all the different ways that Pay Compass does payments. And so let's really talk through some of those options, some of those things, some of the things that I think, where we're going as an industry, where we're going as a company. Obviously, last one was great with Chris and Jeannie sharing, kind of our onboarding tool and where we're going with that. And that is speeding ahead quickly. But today we're going to really talk about, what we call non-traditional payments. And I haven't told this to John yet, but this is really going to kind of kick off what I'm looking at as a series. We're going to talk about each of these kind of non-traditional, not all of them, but certain ones. We're going to dive deeper into those non-traditional payments and have an entire session on each one, because I do think there's a lot of value in this, thinking from that standpoint. So there's 5 of them that we're going to talk about today. And I think a couple of them we'll quickly glance over, but some of them we're going to really spend a lot of time diving into. There's a lot of meat on that bone. There's a lot to talk about. So if you do have questions, like John said, throw in the chat, unmute yourself, text me, email me. I've got those up right next to me. I'll glance at them every once in a while just to make sure I'm not missing anything. If you want to slow down or want me to kind of go back over something, or feel free to wait till the end. I think we'll have plenty of time for some questions there. So I want to start off with just kind of the concept of why I'm personally very passionate about this non-traditional approach, or alternative payments, some people will call them. And quite simply, I just feel like it's where we're going as an industry. Just as we've seen, the industry change much over the years from There are guys that we all know, and maybe you were one of those people. I know I kind of was to a certain extent when I started, that if I saw point of sale or somebody said, "Oh, I have a website, I want you to do their processing," I was like, "Yeah, we'll see ya. I sell terminals." I just didn't want to deal with that complexity. There was a lot of moving parts. There was a lot of things that could go wrong. We've obviously evolved over the years, and we do a ton of that now. I think it's the same way that we're looking at these alternative payment arrangements or non-traditional payment arrangements, is that it's really where our industry is speeding towards. And I think it's important that we understand them, and that, for many of you that are wanting to stay in the industry for a long time, they really start mastering some of these, really start understanding them. I'm not the doom and gloom guy that you'll see out there on some of these podcasts that say, if you're not 100% doing, alternative payments, you're going to be out of business in 5 years. I'm not that guy. I don't think that's correct. But I do think that it's going to be, the market availability of these alternative payments is going to grow and grow and grow more and more and more. And those that are ahead of the game and are walking into it already, are going to be at such a large advantage over those that are not. I really liken it to the concept of what you're seeing happen in the POS space, right? You're seeing that the folks that are out there that have a unified approach to offering technology, hardware offerings, like let's talk about like Toast or Spot On or Square, that aren't just selling, hey, I sell payments, but instead I sell an entire approach, an entire solution. That's really what I look at alternative payments as being, especially some of these we're going to talk about, is that you're really selling an entire solution. You're not just selling one part of the solution. And I think a good example was used on a call recently, is that you're not selling all the car parts, you're selling the entire car. And I think that's a great way to really look at that. So the first of the five that we're going to talk about today, number one, and I thought about putting together some fancy slides, guys, but it was just going to be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I figure most of you can count to 5, I think. So we'll try to keep up. I'm not sure about me, but I'll may get lost there, so I'll try. But number one is cryptocurrency. This comes up a lot of questions about this, a lot of discussions about, what are we doing? Where's the market going on crypto? And for those of you that are not aware of the concept, what that term means, it's Bitcoin, it's Ethereum, it's the digital currencies that are out there. As we look at it today, we have solutions that can support cryptocurrency today. We have ways, if you have merchants that want to take them, there are solutions out there. There's not a lot of them, but there are solutions out there that will accept, cryptocurrency. So as we said today, they're out there, and the demand for it is growing, because there is this concern of just, how stable government currencies are, how much we can rely upon, digital currencies going forward, and that, the desire to have this currency that's kind of not reliant upon the government is something that many people are really, finding a lot of faith in. Well, I think my personal opinion, and I think shared by many others out there, is that right now there is so much volatility in the crypto market that it becomes very hard for your average everyday merchant to want to accept that, because I own a retail store and I have sweaters, and I know that I need $50 from that for selling that sweater. Well, right now that cryptocurrency maybe is worth $50, but 30 minutes from now, that crypto, that specific coin might only be worth, $20. There's a lot of volatility there. It's moving, all over the place. So right now, we're not seeing where we have a lot of mainstream merchants that are looking to say, yeah, I want to jump on the bandwagon. I want to take Bitcoin. I want to take Ethereum. Where we're getting requests from, it tend to be kind of the fringe merchants, some of the people that maybe are on the high risk space, some people that are maybe trying to, I don't want to say hide, but at least, kind of shelter themselves from government regulations, from government knowledge, things out there, in that regard, or they feel that their customers want that. and they want to offer that service, and they feel that, well, if I offer more of these solutions, I'm going to gain more business from this subset of customer out there. So it's definitely there. It's available. If you have customers that want it, especially in an e-commerce environment, we can do it. They're out there. I would caution anyone doing that to really think strongly about the mass fluctuation in value. I do believe, as a if you ask my personal opinion, and this is where some people get all their tinfoil hats going and everything, but I do believe that digital currency is a something that we'll see in the future. As we're becoming more and more, or less and less reliant upon the actual cash, gold-backed cash is a thing of the past. As we become more and more, or less and less reliant upon the actual cash, the ways of going down total digital currency is really not that far off. And so probably at some point we'll fully be, what's called out there stable coin, which is, reliant upon, which is tied to the US dollar and fluctuates with the US dollar, but not, this drastic way. Well, that becomes something that we'll see in more of an accepted way. I believe so. But today, we're just not seeing that as something that is rampantly asked for. I think that, but in the future it would be. So I recommend everybody, hey, be aware of it, know what's going on, be able to talk about it. People ask, you're gonna have merchants ask. So we have merchants every once in a while, especially places that are where there's a younger population. They're talking to maybe college age. We had to come up a couple of weeks ago from a place that was serving a lot of college kids, and some people were asking about it. And it might be some people that are doing some Bitcoin farming or some things like that, and they want an easy way to be able to use that, and that's fine. It's out there, but it's definitely extremely risky and extremely volatile. But it is available if wanted. So that's the first one I want to talk about. I think that's one that's the easiest one to kind of throw down there and say it's out there, it's available. But probably shelved for the future and for most of our merchants anyways. Number two I want to talk about is something that I think is extremely exciting, and I think each of these kind of we're going to talk about are a little more and more excitement anyways, or opportunity, I think. Number two is dispensaries, marijuana dispensaries. Anyone operating in the marijuana dispensary space knows that there is a lot of just, conflicting regulation out there, right? So federally, marijuana is still illegal. So from a federal standpoint, banks will not touch them if they're federally chartered, which most banks are federally chartered. They won't touch the transmission of anything having to do with marijuana. That could be even something as simple as I sell, the wrappers that are used for someone to make this, make those products. Banks don't even want that money. They don't want anything that touches that industry. So, I mean, they want it, but they're worried about the regulation side of it for sure, because there's obviously a lot of money there. So for a long time, dispensaries have struggled, with just being a really, really heavy cash business. They can't take, for the longest time, they couldn't take credit cards, they couldn't take debit cards. There were some workarounds, but they were really not stable. They were really not reliable. But you fast forward today, and there's a couple really strong solutions out there for the marijuana dispensaries now, and one that we've used and we feel is really reliable, really something that's going to stand out there for a long time. So let me take a step back and talk about what has not worked in the past. You see a lot of people out there, and maybe some of you have seen these in dispensaries or heard from dispensary owners that say, "Oh yeah, I'm set up right now. I can take credit cards, debit cards, no problem." Likely that account was set up incorrectly, meaning that somebody set up and said, "This is a smoke shop. This is a," we've even seen them, people set them up as nurseries, like a gardening nursery, things like that. Likely that account has been set up, not in a truthful manner, and it's only a matter of time before it comes along and and gets shut down by that processor. We see people out there, you even look at like First Data. Many people ask, like, why is First Data so kind of staunch against the smoke shop industry? Well, it's because a lot of them are being misclassified as CBD places or dispensaries, full out. So that's been out there for a long time. You've probably heard from people or seen it all over the internet. People talking about, hey, I can take whatever card I want to. That's not a reliable solution. That's not a solution that really is going to last them long term. And they're looking at getting shut down. If you look at the large national dispensaries, they've been using for years. Places that like Curaleaf, places like Planet 13, that are the large granddaddies across the country. They're using what's called cashless ATM. Sorry, I'll spit it out there. You'll also see it referred to as point of banking. And that's a solution that's been out there for a long time. It's had its ups and downs. It's been attacked in many ways as not being something that is allowed, but it has really stood the test of time and is a great solution. It's a great solution for the merchant, as well as a great solution for you as a salesperson. So what is point of banking or cashless ATM? So imagine right now most dispensaries heavily rely upon ATMs. They have ATMs there in their store. A lot of issues happen with those ATMs where someone walks up, they kind of have to in their mind think ahead of time, like, how much money am I going to spend? I'm going to spend $100, so I'm going to get $100 out of the machine. Now I have $100 in cash, in my hand to walk up to the counter and shop. They have to pay a fee for it, of course. But sometimes, what if the machine's out of cash? Somebody just hasn't refilled it. I mean, there's obviously a lot of cash going through those machines. What if somebody hasn't refilled it? What if there's just an issue with the machine in general? Obviously, there are times when it's things can break down and not work. And then you have limitations of the person just took out $100 in cash. Maybe they might have thousands in their checking account, but they took out $100 in cash, and now they feel limited to, I can only spend this $100. So that's all I have. I don't want to go pay another fee to get more money out of the ATM. So cashless ATM's kind of taken that convenience that the rails that the ATM runs on and solve some of those problems, made it a little better. So imagine you walk up to the counter, you've done your shopping, you've picked out, and for those of you familiar with it, you're laughing at me right now because it's not like you're wandering around grabbing stuff off the shelves. They help you grab the things. You're standing at the counter, you're ready to check out, and you literally have a deja vu terminal sitting there, and you take your debit card. Now, this is a debit card only, because think of this as an ATM transaction. You have to think of it that way. And you're inserting your credit card, or I'm sorry, your debit card. You're entering your PIN number just like you would at an ATM. And it is going to then round that transaction off to the nearest $5 mark. So if it's $131, it's going to round it to $135. There is almost always a fee tied with that, because there's a fee being charged to the merchant. And just like you pay money to take out cash at an ATM, they're charging you a fee for you to take out cash at their ATM as well. And the transaction is going to go through. It's going to print out a receipt. You're going to sign it just like you would, any normal transaction. But what's happened on the backside is, because this is referred to as a cashless ATM transaction, this runs on the ATM rails, and it goes through the banking system as an ATM transaction. It looks like an ATM transaction, no differently than if you had taken your debit card and you walked over to the ATM in the lobby and gotten your cash out. So it runs through the system. There is no link to, that $140 was used at Planet 13 dispensary. Instead, this was $140 pulled out of ATM number 74364. So that's the concept of why this works. And so it solves a lot of problems with the dispensaries. You don't have the heavy cash usage You obviously don't have the issues potentially with the ATMs there. And then the biggest solver of this, or the biggest thing this solves, is that you're not limited to what the person has in cash in their pocket. Instead, you're limited to the cash they have in their debit account. So there's a lot more opportunity for, spur of the moment, like, hey, I know you're buying, 5 pre-rolls. If you buy 10, you get 11th one free or whatever. There's really some upsell opportunities here that you're not limited by just the cash they have in their pocket. So there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of advantages, and for you as a salesperson, you have the opportunity to sell that solution, and there's a lot of profitability, in that transaction. So it's a great way to do that. Many places are still have the ATM, and then they have the cashless ATM as well. There are a few other solutions out there in the dispensary world as well that are app driven, that I think are really unique and great out there. There's one called Monarch that is a great solution that allows you to kind of pre-shop and then you show up. Same thing. It's instead of using the ATM, it's just doing an ACH out of your checking account, depositing the ACH for the merchant. Very similar, process. A little slower, of course, on the deposits because it's ACH. But they're trying to get around not using the ATM networks and the fees that go along with that, instead using the ACH. So there are a few others out there, but I think, personally, I have a lot of faith in the cashless ATM process. I have a lot of faith in the fact that, when you look at the largest dispensaries out there, they've been using these solutions for many, many years. Some of them, and I think the other part I love about these solutions is usually, they have multiple, for lack of a better term, multiple pathways that they process down. So if one pathway has an issue, they can switch to another rail and run down that rail, so the merchant doesn't have an issue. So there's a lot of advantages on that front, and I think a lot of opportunity for folks that operate in that space, have comfortability in that space. It kind of goes along with concepts we talked about before. If it's something that, hey, go talk with people that are doing, that are operating in the space that you enjoy. If that's something you enjoy, if that's something that you're really knowledgeable about, you love that industry, that space, what a better way than to go out and work with people that are also operating in the cannabis space and talk to them about some of these solutions. See, it's like coffee with closers. I got my Waffle House mug. See that, John? It's like coffee with closers here. All right. So 1 and 2, again, I think, each one as we get up, I think there's more and more immediate opportunity for. Number 3 we're going to talk about is just high risk in general. And that's a really just kind of, wide open discussion, of what is high risk, what is not high risk. I had a director of operations the other day at a large processor say to me that, I was talking with him and I said, well, where's the line in the sand, where it becomes low risk or high risk? And his response was, well, wherever we want to make that line. At the end of the day, we as the processor, we as the bank, make that decision, and the bank decides differently in different situations where that line is based on different partnerships, how long that partnership's been around. So the concept of high risk definitely fluctuates from processor to processor, from relationship to relationship, from bank to bank. I mean, even the same bank, I could tell you lots of stories about, a singular bank having different policies and different processors based upon their comfortability with those specific processors. So a lot of it has to do with the relationship and the trust that is built, amongst those partnerships. But high risk is something that, and this was one of the things we really wanted to talk, and we will have a deeper one-on-one that will be just about high risk in our upcoming series of these. But high risk is something that I know I for years avoided, and I know many of you who are on this call, your background is very similar to mine, and you did the same thing. You've been at a low risk processor, and things that were even smelled a little weird, you had to stay away from. Well, you no longer have to do that. There is a huge opportunity for high risk here at Pay Compass. We do a lot of high risk every single month. It's been something that has been growing more and more for us. We've learned so much about it over the last few years. It's crazy. 3 years ago, I had no idea what high risk was, and now we have tons of different partnerships and hundreds of merchants that are high risk merchants. So really, what is high risk? Well, high risk really comes down to it is a risk profile that is placed on a certain type of merchant, usually based upon the fact of that merchant is going to be, because of the way they run their business, the type of product they sell, the way they sell that product, it is looked at as a high chargeback probability. That's really what it comes down to, or high, because of fraud, because of whatever reason it may be. But at the end of the day, if you really boil it all down, no matter what it is, you're looking at fraud, you're looking at, or just unhappy customers, or an unstable business that went out of business. It all boils down to chargebacks at the end of the day. Is there going to be a lot of chargebacks in this business model? Do we have a high propensity for it? If we do, then as a processor, we need to take a deeper dive into looking at that merchant and saying, are we comfortable with this merchant? Are we comfortable with this merchant if we do X, Y, Z? And that's really where high risk comes into place. Your more low risk, medium risk processors, a lot of times just aren't built for high risk, don't want to play in that high risk space. We talk about all the time, many of you have heard me, that we have 35 different high risk bank partners. And that is true. And actually, it might be a little more than that. But, why do we have 35 instead of 34? It's probably because that one of them will only do one particular way. For example, if you want to do, CBD, but you want it to be on this particular hardware solution, and you want this particular funding timeline, our team knows that this particular bank will do that. Every bank has different things they're comfortable with in different ways they look at that. So there's a lot of different solutions. Your typical high-risk merchants are merchants that are going to have either they operate in a space that is a chargeback heavy environment, or they are selling products that have long future delivery to them. So things like travel is a big one. Obviously, you're buying tickets for flights, hotels, whatever, that might not be for a year out, right? Furniture is another big one. You go and you pick out your couch today, you pay for it today, but you're not getting it for 6 months. There's a lot of opportunity for things to go wrong in that time frame. Maybe they don't deliver the couch that you thought was promised. Maybe you change your mind on what you want, but there's no refunds. Maybe they deliver something that's just not the right color you thought. There's a lot of opportunity for issues there. Ticketing for anything, for concerts, let's say, is another big one. Concert promoters, ticket providers, things like that. People that do things that are where they're selling advice or counseling, things like that. Psychics, I know that sounds like a weird one, but we've got a few of those that are literally psychics. But of course, they already knew that it was going to be tough to get an account approved because they could see the future. So we were good there. But anything where there is a high likelihood of chargeback because something didn't get delivered the way the person wanted, or there is kind of an opinion around that product, like counseling, motivational speaking gigs, things like that, where somebody says, hey, I thought I was going to go and listen to these 5, big names talk, but I showed up and none of them were there. And instead, they just tried to sell me books and get me to sign up for this thing. I want my money back, and they're saying no refunds, and suddenly there's a whole bunch of chargebacks. You think of like, many of you are familiar with obviously, Netflix special about the Fire Festival. Think about that. Think about the mass amount of chargebacks that happened in a situation like that. Think about during COVID, all the travel chargebacks and issues around that. So from a processing standpoint, they look at that and they say, these are really higher risk. And I think most of us just kind of naturally know what they are and what they're not. But there are homes for all of these. And that's the thing I want to make sure to reiterate to everybody is that, there is a place, I could count on one hand the amount of times that, we could not find a home for a legitimate, solid business. And obviously if they're fraudulent, just trying to scam people, we're not going to board those. But if they're a legitimate, solid business that is out there trying to operate, above board, there is a bank out there. There is a process solution that we can find for that merchant. Now, in the high risk space, there is a lot of opportunity. And talking about how to get into that space is really, I think, I would recommend finding the type of industry maybe that you would like to chat about more. Start getting online, looking at solutions, looking for potential people that are looking for help. There's a lot of people out there that are looking for help in the high risk space. One thing that I didn't realize until I got into the high risk space is and it makes sense, is that the merchant is scared that they're going to get shut down. And oftentimes it's an actual, it's a legitimate fear because they have been shut down. Many of them start off with Stripe. A lot of these they're online businesses. A lot of them start off with Stripe. They start off with Square. They start with whoever it may be, and they already had an issue and they got shut down because they were truthful about what their business model was. But over time, things maybe kind of evolved, kind of changed, became a little higher risk, a few more chargebacks. Things started changing and they got shut down. And they're without the ability to process credit cards for a period of time. No business owner wants that. I mean, that's obviously just going to kill the business. So oftentimes these businesses are looking for secondary options. They're looking for, the term is, a backup processor, to where they'll basically have multiple solutions. And they'll take their transactions, and if you're utilizing the right gateways, you can actually have that, transaction 1 goes to this processor, transaction 2 goes here, transaction 3 goes here. So it's a great way if you're looking to break into the high risk space. My personal advice would be is to start talking to people, merchants that are already high risk, start industries that maybe you want to talk more about. Find some businesses in that space, just start talking to them about the option to be one of their backup processors. We can help you through some of those so you understand the lingo, you understand the things you're saying, you're talking about. But once you start getting them more and more and more, then you become more and more known in that industry, and you can grow yourself more and more in there. It is it's an ugly side of the business. It's tough. You definitely have to kiss a lot of frogs to find the prince in that industry. There are a lot of fraudulent people. There are a lot of people that are just flat out lying, trying to get accounts approved to scam and steal from people. It's something we have to be very diligent about. But for those business owners that are real, that are legit, that are solid, they have no problem paying drastically more. And we have to charge drastically more because the costs are higher. Obviously, the risk opportunity is much higher, so we have to charge more. So there's a lot of opportunity for you to make a tremendous amount of more money on these accounts than your traditional low risk. In addition, there are other things that go along with high risk that we don't even talk about on the low risk side. Things like chargeback prevention tools, chargeback solutions, things that I had no idea existed. And if you're in the low risk space, you probably don't as well. And that's again a whole nother call that we'll dive deeper into it. But the opportunity to not just make money on the processing side of it, but on additional solutions that will help the business owner is huge in my mind, and a big part of the high risk space. So the high risk space is, like I said, it's not easy always. It's difficult. You're talking about reserves. People having to have a certain percentage of their money set over here to protect the processor from mass amount of chargebacks. The rates are going to be higher. Oftentimes there's delays in how they get their funds, but there are very few people that do high risk processing well. PayCompass does it very well, and we can definitely help you through that the whole process of talking to them. So if you have some opportunities there, there's a lot of business out there on the high risk space for sure. All right, number 4 I'm going to talk about real quick, or probably not real quick, nothing's real quick, is the ISV world. And again, I think each of these we go, I think there's more and more immediate opportunity with. I think high risk and ISV are kind of, side by side there in that regard. But I think, I firmly believe that one of the largest opportunities for us, and even I would venture to say, where the industry is going is down that ISV path in a deep way. And I think that, again, I don't feel like you need to be, if I'm not doing ISVs, I'm out of business, 5 years from now. It's not like that. But I do feel that, more and more solutions are going to be on the ISV train. And that's going to become harder and harder to work with some of these solutions the further we go down that path. And what do I mean by that? So ISV stands for independent software vendor. So think of anybody who creates a software that they're out there selling to the general public. So that can be anything from a point of sale solution that somebody's selling to a restaurant to use to run their whole restaurant, to somebody who's making a software that is very specific to dog barbershops, whatever, dog grooming, barbershop, dog grooming. So I mean, you really have all these people out there, and obviously it can be anything. We think of software sometimes, I think, as being complex, that these are being made by these large companies, and we have no opportunity. But what you really find out is that most of these softwares that are being developed, most of the softwares that are getting released, and there's new ones being released every single day, is really truly typically some singular person or a small company that is just trying to make it. They're trying to make their money off of SaaS fees. They maybe got some small amount of funding from some family and friends. They're trying to even get to their Series A funding to try to get even more stable. And they're just trying to prove it and break into that that model. You're not looking at most of these as being these complex solutions. And so, in the past, we thought of these as being just like, okay, fine, somebody, goes with that solution, they go with that solution. And, maybe we can tie into it with authorized.net, maybe we can tie into it with NMI or whatever gateway. But what's happening more and more is these ISVs are looking at payments as a large revenue opportunity for them. And they're looking and saying, hey, I'm making, my dog grooming software, and I'm selling the monthly SaaS for this software at, let's say, $100 a month. Well, that's great. That's awesome. But man, if I get some money off the payments over here that's going through it, I can maybe double my revenue. I can maybe get another $100, or I can get another $50. I can, without really doing anything more than just teaming up with somebody and selecting that person as my partner, I can make a tremendous amount more money. And that's the speed of that's the path that we're speeding down on that ISV train that I'm talking about. Is these solutions are looking at ways to speed up the revenue, and products that are out there, solutions that are out there, make that easy to integrate with. You're seeing less and less solutions being created that are that are agnostic, that say, hey, you know what, I'm going to create my software and I'm just going to make my money off the software, and I'm going to write my software to where it talks to authorize.net, and Mr. Merchant, you choose whatever processor you feel is appropriate for you. That's great. There's some they're definitely out there, and they're still happening, but that pie is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. What's more happening is exactly what I described before. Is instead of saying, "Hey, what's in it for me? I can team up with you, or maybe these two people, and I can make money off of the payment side of it as well for really doing no more work. Let's go." So there is so much opportunity in this space, and I can't reiterate enough that this is, we're already there. We're already in the ISV world. We're already doing a lot with ISVs now at PayCompass, as well as many of you are, and many other processors are. If you're not working in that space, it's something I would highly encourage you to do, because, you think about, the business owners that are out there today, the guy that owns the dog groomers, maybe he's a baby boomer age, right? And he's okay with, I've got, my cash register, or maybe I've even got a software solution that helps me run my dog grooming place. But I've got my little separate credit card terminal over here because I got Gary, Gary and I are in the BNI group together, and I like Gary, and everything's fine. This all works. Well, that next generation that's taking over these businesses is buying that dog groomer. The guy who's opening up the dog groomer across the street is likely of a younger generation and is more likely to want to have everything in one solution, one unified approach. And that they're looking for, hey, I'm gonna go online one night. I'm gonna run through a bunch of different options out there. I'm gonna select my software. Hey, it's got payments already built into it. Awesome, great. One less thing I gotta worry about. I'm done. Now I can go figure out what dog beds I want to buy. We're speeding down towards that path, and it is an amazing opportunity for those of you that are doing it. You know what I'm talking about, to wake up in the morning and look at your email and say, oh, I had 2 new customers overnight because 2 new customers signed up for one of my ISVs. It becomes, again, it's a lot of kissing frogs to find that prince. But when you do, and you find that partnership that makes sense, and you go through the heavy yards and help with the integration, get it all done, and we have all the tools and all the solutions to help you with those integrations, it just becomes true mailbox money at that point, where it's just customers are signing up for their solution and automatically becoming your customer at the same time. So it's a great space to be. I think it's something that everybody on this call has the ability to work on. Talking with people that are developing software, whether it be online in your town. There are people out there all over that are doing it. Some have partnerships they're happy with. Some have partnerships they're not happy with. Some don't want partners. Some are like, I'm not really sure. But building those relationships takes a little time. Build that trust. But the opportunities are massive. So that's number 4. The last one I'm going to talk about, and definitely this is really the kickoff to a series of calls we're going to do on the concept of what we're calling unified commerce. Many of you have heard me talk about in the past of Passport, the product that Priority has out there. Passport is something that has been in development for many years. It's been something that we've used, we've tested out, we've used it in some of our large ISV integrations, and we're now testing it out, or very quickly about ready to test it out in some of our regular, just small, medium-sized businesses as well. There's a huge opportunity in this, and I think the concept I said earlier about, hey, we're gonna be really offering the entire car, not just the car parts, really plays out when we start talking about the unified commerce approach of what Passport delivers. Let me give you just kind of a quick rundown of what that means. So let's fast forward, let's say 6 months from now, we've tested this out fully. We're really comfortable with how Passport's rolling. We've now flipped the switch. Every time you board a merchant, and we board that to Priority, which is 99.9% of our deals. We board that to Priority. It's going to be automatically boarded on the Passport the passport product. Okay. And I'm trying to use the right word, but when we're in that environment, that passport environment, what we're doing is we're boarding into that. But for your merchant, nothing looks any differently. They're still using their same terminal. They're still using, let's say, Aloha. But what's happening on the backside that nobody sees is when the money comes in, from Visa and MasterCard, when that money comes through, it goes into Passport, which Passport, the engine behind Passport, is an FDIC assured, solution banking, basically, for lack of a better term. I mean, it really is. I mean, I don't want to use bank in its figurative, that where you think like I'm gonna walk into a physical bank, but it is a banking solution with money transfer licenses in 50 states and 100 countries that allows you to do everything that a bank does. Priority a few years ago bought a company called Fincera that allowed them to have this kind of engine behind this Passport product. So the money comes into the Passport account. It's credited to their Passport account, and then immediately, because we've set them up to process just like they were before, immediately that money then is debited out of that ledger and goes over to there and deposited in their, let's say, Wells Fargo account. Merchant never sees anything different. They have no idea it's even happening. It's just a ledgering system on the backside. But now we can go to merchants, and some of you, I think, will be comfortable about doing this in the beginning. We'll have an entire approach about how to kind of come on the backside and talk about this with merchants as well. But now we can go to merchants and say, hey, this is happening on the backside. It's not affecting you at all. We're not asking it for it to affect you, but we want to show you maybe the benefits of using Passport for more than just what it's doing now, which is credits in, debits out. There is an entire unified commerce approach here within Passport that allows you to do so much. So it is an entire banking service built in there that does more than what they're probably getting out of their current banking solution. So when I say bank, I mean, okay, you have a routing number, you have an account number, you can get checks, you can ask for a debit card, you have online bill pay, you have all the same things you're used to in your banking solution, but there's some added benefits. Number one, with a click of a button, you can have access to your money within 20 minutes. That's huge. So imagine, what I mean by that is imagine, you're fine, cash flow is fine, but something happens and I need to pay a $10,000 bill right now, and I'm not going to have that until the batch hits tomorrow. Well, I go ahead and batch out my terminal, I close it out. Within 10 to 20 minutes, that money is sitting in my Passport account, and I have full access to it. I can write a check on it. I can use my debit card against it. That money is there. I will pay a small fee for doing that, but it's better than not being able to pay the bill and not being able to take care of whatever opportunities in front of you. That's something that you don't have anywhere else. You don't have that, with your current bank solution. You don't have that with any other processing solution out there. It's this integration with Fincera Unified Commerce Passport platform that allows you to do that. In addition, would you like to, pay your servers a little faster? Would you like to make some money off of your servers potentially? Well, you have the opportunity. You have a debit card as the business owner, but you want to go in and set up your employees or your servers, let's say, with their own sub-Passport accounts. You can then transfer money with a click of a button, or if you're using an MX front-end product, it will automatically do this for you if you want, where money is then sent immediately onto their sub cards, so that when they're walking out of there that night, they, in their Passport account, which is tied to their debit card they have, the money is already there. No more waiting for payday, no more having to get cash out. You can have things transferred immediately if you want to. In addition, there is interchange created, obviously, when they use their debit card. When they go across the street to the grocery store and they go buy some groceries, go to the bar or whatever, use their debit card, interchange is created. You will earn some of that interchange as the sales agent. You also have the opportunity to give them some rebate back to the business owner if you want to as well, for the as a portion of that interchange. Same thing with those sub agents or those sub passport accounts. I'm sorry, where there's interchange created there as well. Obviously, there's the opportunity to create revenue through that source. There's money that is paid just for having a daily balance. There is money that is paid for, hey, I want to put it in a savings account that has a transaction limit on it. There's extremely competitive. We're talking, 4.5% type savings account fees that are paid out, or I'm sorry, interest is paid out if you want to keep it over there. If you want to keep some of it, transfer some of it, you can do that as well. Coming very soon, tied into that, is going to be full abilities to do things like investment accounts tied into Passport, as well as a full nationwide healthcare solution that'll be available to all Fincera Passport members that will give them the ability to access for them and for their employees healthcare at a large national group rate because they're part of that program. So it really is that you're going out there and you're not just selling, hey, I sell credit cards. And you're not even having to charge a fee to make money because there's money being made off of just the money sitting there in their Passport account or them walking across the street and using their card. There's money made in that regard that's funded back to Priority, which then they're sharing with us as part of that revenue as well. So there's a lot of opportunities in there. And I don't expect everybody to become experts on this. I don't think, everybody's going to be out there selling this, because there's some complexity and understanding it. But once you see the solution, and again, this will be part of our ongoing series of learning more about this. Once you see the dashboard and see how intuitive and easy it is, and see how the merchant can really utilize that immediate access to funds when they want it, is absolutely game changing in my opinion. It is something that is going to be a huge opportunity for you and your merchants all over. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about, and this is going to be really quick because we're almost out of time. I thought I was going to have all this time. I always do. Is a product called Plastic, which is also going to be integrated. Plastic with a Q, which is also going to be integrated into the unified commerce approach through Passport, which also, by the way, is going to be tied in with MX Merchant. So all one solution, one place to go to see it all. Plastic is an amazing solution that was a company that was purchased by Priority a few years ago. Plastic gives you the ability to pay vendors that don't accept credit cards with your credit card. So let me give you a quick example. Let's say I want to pay, my sales tax bill. They don't accept credit cards. I go onto Plastic. I create a profile, enter in all my credit card information. It syncs it all up. It knows how much I have available on my credit cards. I say, hey, I want to pay, this bill with it. I put in the vendor information. There will very soon be a directory that will find other previously entered vendors from other people. I put in how much I owe. I can even just import bills. It integrates with QuickBooks. It integrates with Sage and NetSuite. And Xero as well. Will automatically pull in that information. And then you can utilize your credit card to pay the bill for a vendor that doesn't accept credit card. They will simply send them an ACH or send them a physical check, whichever way it needs to be paid. And they will charge the consumer or the business or whoever is using it a 2.9% fee for doing that. So if they're utilizing a card where they already get some rebate back anyways, they get some rebate back, obviously, on their cash back. But in addition, they get longer time to pay the bill because, I paid for it today on my credit card, but my bill cycle isn't due for another 45 days. So they have the potential really to stretch that out on Plastic as well. There's some revenue share in there available for you as well. And again, that's part of that overall unified commerce approach. So we'll talk about all those, or not all of them, but at least 3 of those 5 deeper as we go on. But my goal for today was just kind of give you a quick overview of what I look at as really the 5 biggest, non-traditional payment opportunities out there. We're talking about, the crypto, the dispensaries, high risk ISV, and that unified commerce approach. John, I know I didn't leave a lot of time for questions, but I'm sure we have some.
Yeah. Well, most of them are about your dog barbershop, and just wanting to know when that's going to. No, I'm joking. We did have one of our high risk angels laying it on my shoulder and said drop shippers are a great high risk
Yes.
option. You know, obviously chargebacks are an issue when you deal with shipping delays, but they're one of those that, you know, they're all over the place. And so a great one. There was a question about point of banking or the cashless ATM back at the dispensaries. Have we seen any integrations with any of the kind of dispensary point of sale systems that are starting to grow, like Blaze and some of those?
Yes, but unfortunately, most of them are offering their own. They're
Okay.
very proprietary about it because they're just building it and building it right in there. Again, it's you know, there's only a handful you know, there's only a handful of businesses that are really doing, you know, that are, if you boil it all down to the companies that are really truly offering the point of banking, there's only a handful of them out there that are doing it really well. And these people that are creating these softwares that are becoming large softwares know who those guys are, and they're going and they're just getting, you know, a direct agreement straight with them, kind of their own ISOs. So, you know, in that space, you know, I wouldn't be going after the large players. I'd be going after the small one that, you know, sees the opportunity, sees the advantage of having that local rep and that local solution.
Okay. Okay.
Even your large players like you know, Planet 13, and that's what I talk about just because, you know, it's one of the largest in the country, if not the world. They have a software and then they have a standalone terminal. As a matter of fact, they have two of them. And one day I asked their manager, like, why do you have two? And they said that it's just to make sure kind of redundancy, just kind of like we talked about on the high risk side of it. Said, you know, we have agreements with two different, you know, cashless ATM vendors, and we just instruct the staff just to run one-on-one transaction, the next one run it over here, and just alternate back and forth, so that, you know, if one goes down, we're never without.
Yep.
Yeah.
Most of the rest of it was just applause and thumbs up, and I think we've hit on something that folks are interested in. So, well, thanks for telling me about the series when you told everyone else, but we're excited about launching that soon. So
that's how we roll, John. You know that. Come on, that's how we roll.
I do. We'll. I mean, at this point, I guess we'll open it up if we've got one question that somebody wants to try and ask. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and call it here at the top of the hour. So I'll stop for just a second and see if anybody's got a question.
See if I got any. All right. Well, I will say, guys, I am personally extremely excited about the unified commerce approach and learning more about that. And I want everybody to know is that we're not expecting everybody to become experts on this. Our goal is to create a team of folks internal to Pay Compass that are the experts on the solutions like Passport and the whole Passport banking solution, Plastic, and all the tools and systems go around there that can either aid you in showing that prior to the sale, or be that solution that comes in after the sale and says, hey, you know, you're not using this now. Let me show you how, if you did use this, how this could benefit you more. You're already with us. Let's help you, you know, making more opportunity out of this. I think the days of, you know, there obviously are a lot of people out there that still have that close-knit relationship with their bankers, but it's getting less and less and less. And I think it's a great time for the solution for sure.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Again, we'll send the recording out here in another hour or two, and we'll see you next week for an actual Coffee with Closers, even though it'll just be Justin with a coffee cup again. So thanks, everybody.
That's right. See you guys. Have a good one.